Hello and welcome to the Petey Performance Podcast. Today's episode of the podcast is a conversation with Tipperary hurler and Roscrea hurler Alan Tynan. Alan has experience playing professional rugby with Munster, and he's just finished the Inter-County season with Tipperary, in which they were unlucky to not go the whole way to the All-Ireland. But we had a conversation about the season itself, about his breakthrough year for the team of Tipperary. We talked about his club, Roscrea, my club, or my old club, and we talked about the year that they had last year, winning the county championship intermediate and then going on into the Munster final. We talked a bit about his family and his upbringing and a lot about his development as an athlete. We talked about rugby and talked about whether he has any regrets in not going the whole way there, or whether he's comfortable with his position in playing hurling now to the best level that he possibly can. So great episode for you guys. If you're from Tipperary, if you're from Roscrea, I'm sure you'll love it. And if you do like it, please remember to like it, share it, and send it. Alan Tynan. Well, kid, how are you? I'm from Roscrea. We're sitting in the Stand Bar, which we've both frequented many, many times. It's a good setting for this podcast. Good to be home and good to be having this conversation. So what's the story? What are you up for the day and for the weekend?
Well, Pete, delighted to be on the podcast. And as you say, a great setting for it. Just going to go back to work after doing this, and I think I'm going to head down to Kerry for the long weekend. So have a holiday home down there, so spend some time with the family down there.
Nice. Shout out to Paul Mack as well, who's letting us do this in the Stand Bar. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people in Roscrea listening, so come into the stand and give Paul your money for a few points to say thank you. Free bit of advertising for Paul. But anyway, you're going down to Kerry, you're working away. Inter-county season is now done, unfortunately quite a while ago for Tipperary. And I wanted to ask you, how did you find the season as a whole, and then how do you think you guys as a group will perceive the season? Like, given that you didn't go as far as you probably thought you could have, is it a failure, or were there a lot of lessons that you'll take into next year?
Yeah, probably a mixed bag, I suppose. Under new management, a lot of new players, a lot of lads making their first kind of championship season and getting a lot of game time under their belt. I suppose if you go back to the start of the league, I thought we had a very, very good league campaign. Obviously, we lost to Limerick in a semi-final, but we probably would have taken a lot of encouragement from the league and the first half, the Limerick performance anyway. I thought we really put it up to them. But look, I suppose hurling's a game of two halves, and they fairly put it to the pin of our collar in the second half. But yeah, then I suppose we kind of dusted ourselves down after league, and it was kind of nice. I think we got like a month break between league and championship to actually prepare properly and to prepare for Clare. And yeah, look, first day out, I think we had a really, really good performance. Like, I suppose we were a threat in front of goal. We were very clinical in every kind of, in a lot of aspects of our game, I suppose, but especially in front of goal. And then that led on to Cork and Limerick with 2 draws. And I suppose, look, if we had got a victory in one of those, it would have set us up really nicely. Probably really disappointed to draw the Cork game. Especially after kind of leading for so long in that match. Whereas the Limerick game, not that we were happy to draw or anything, but we got a last minute free to level it, so it was nearly more relief to draw that and take a point rather than to take nothing away from it at all. And then I suppose our season fairly kind of seemed to fall down a lot after the Waterford performance. To be honest, it's still hard to kind of put your finger on it to know what actually happened on that day. We were so flat, no energy about us at all, and that's what we were building a lot of our performances on early, like throughout that year. And I suppose when we didn't get up to the intensity of the game, Waterford fairly blew us away, and I suppose it was the first half really that was a massive killer, because look, we kind of came back into it in the second half, but it was just too late. And but yeah, I suppose we should have been probably preparing for a Munster final, but instead we had Offaly, I think it was a week or two later, and it was, look, it was good to probably get another game under our belt against Offaly, but like, it was just, that was kind of week.
Another game.
Yeah, it was just week after week, and I suppose if you got to a Munster final, you probably would have got a nicer rest in between kind of those match weeks to prepare properly, and also just to get your body right, like, because as you said, the season's fairly condensed, a lot of games, and as you know, like the Munster Championship's seriously intense. So like we picked up a lot of knocks to really like crucial players to our team. Like, I suppose Jason and Jake, Cottle Barrett, like, they're three massive names, and it's like, to not have them, I suppose, going into a few of our matches was, well, it was obviously tough, but to be fair to a lot of lads, they did put their hand up when they got the chance. So
but I think what the general public don't get about that, and the fans don't get, is they're thinking, oh, it's a great player, they're missing a player. But as you said, the season is so condensed, and the whole way through the season you're working on your system, and the changes in personnel impact on you, like, perfecting that system, because it's a new player with new strengths and new weaknesses coming in, trying to fulfill a similar role to, say, Jake or Jason or whoever, but they're not Jake or Jason. So then you have to kind of slightly change and refine your system to suit the other player. And as a result, you don't build what it sounds like there. You don't build the same momentum you would if everybody was fit, because that's what it seemed like in the Waterford game. Was that performance, it was out of character, sure, but that kind of stunted your momentum that you were building.
Yeah, I do. I think, like, it's probably, that's one of the main things I'll definitely take from this year, is like, don't let one performance to just knock you completely, because it's kind of what seemed to happen. I know fair enough, we put up a high score against Offaly the following week, but like, we were just as flat again against Galway in that first half, and to be honest, the second half wasn't much better. It was just, we were probably a small bit, better in front of goal, and we took the few chances that we got, but yeah, look, overall, I suppose them two games, Galway in the quarter final, and I suppose Waterford in the last round of the Munster Championship, they probably will be the main two things, main two games that this year will be remembered for in Tipperary. And it's just kind of disappointing, I suppose, in that regard, because there was a lot of positives leading up to them two games. So yeah, I suppose in Tipp we're judged on winning Munster Championships, winning All Irelands, and we'll take that on the chin, and we'll try rectify what went wrong and get better for it, and push on next year, and hopefully get back up to Pro Park and show what we're really made of.
Hopefully, for sure. You touched on there the couple of performances that didn't go to plan. You felt that as a team you were a bit flat. So is energy something that you focus on, like bringing energy and work rate to everything that you do? Is it something you talk about, or do you have a specific theme that you talk about as a group, that you're like, when you go into this game, lads, I just want you to keep going next ball or whatever? How do you anchor yourself to just keep working?
Look, I suppose I would have worked under Liam, Cal and Mikey Beavens since I was a minor. When I heard they were getting the job, and I wasn't on the panel at the time, so I was, kind of licking my lips, because I kind of felt like I'd be a player that they'd look at and might like, and I suppose a massive thing for them. The biggest thing for them is work rate and intensity and hunger. Not just on the ball, but definitely off it. Like, turnovers is massive, and you can see in an inter-county game, the team that does make the least amount of turnovers are going to be, coming out the right side of the result 99% of the time. Like you look at Limerick in the All-Ireland final, like that second half play, like they were just so clinical. They made very little mistakes in comparison to the first half. Kilkenny were working so hard, and they were getting little turnovers here and there, and they were turning them into big plays and getting scores from. So yeah, to go back to your question, I suppose, look, I suppose every team, it's thrown around a lot, work rate and intensity and stuff like that. But I really felt with Tipp this year, what we were being judged on the field was, I suppose, our honesty, our work rate, our tackle count. Like I'd say our tackle count was through the roof, in comparison to maybe, other years, especially in the forwards. I just thought like, we kind of, a lot of lads brought it to another level. Like we slag Jake a lot, in there just about, you're an old fancy Dan hurler, like, and you'll score when you get the chance. But I suppose if you look at him this year, different animal, like just constantly working. Even I remember a goal against Galway. It was Jake running back out the field, hooking, was it Gerard McInerney from behind, and then kind of a lucky ball in, but it came from a turnover, like, and I suppose the best teams, I suppose in championship, their forwards are probably getting a lot of turnovers, and that's setting up for a lot of scores, or else it's affecting the ball that maybe going into the opposition forwards, and it's giving our backs a better chance. So yeah, look, definitely that was a big thing, and we would have put a massive emphasis on our work rate and our turnover and tackle count.
So I've heard you talking before about something similar, and you've described Jake there as a fancy Dan hurler. You wouldn't consider yourself to be a fancy Dan, and you had a bit of a breakthrough season this year. Do you think this year that breakthrough came from having a very specific role and just going after it and playing that role to the best of your ability, like getting stuck in, working hard, making turnovers, hassling defenders? Like, you're not afraid to go get a score, but you're also probably thought about as one of those real impact players that when you're around the ball, you're going to have an impact on the outcome of whatever's happening. Yeah.
Look, I suppose when I went in 3 years ago, I knew I wasn't going to be, I remember going into training, and like you're pucking, say, with Jo, and you're just looking at him touch a ball, and you're like, my God, how do you do that? And like, I remember Shamey one time, just it was actually myself and Keane Darcy in the group with Shamey, and a ball came to him, whatever way, he just sliced it straight up into his hand and over his bar. And I remember Keane Darcy going, oh my God, Shamey, that was unreal. I was thinking, there's not in a million years will I ever be able to do anything like that. But yeah, I suppose, as you say, I had a role with the team. It was either midfield or half forward, and it was just bring as much energy as I possibly could, run the legs off myself, turnovers, tackles. But I suppose, like, that's what a lot of people would see and probably regard me as. But like, Liam and Mikey were constantly on to me about getting on the ball, because I suppose I would feel I'm able to break lines when I get on the ball, and I suppose, yeah. So
that's the impact I'm on about. Like, it seems like when you get the ball, the defense kind of are like, oh shite, like, because you have that power and that burst that if you go past them, you're breaking through the line, and then you're gonna attract some other defender, and if you attract another defender, as you know, somebody's going to be free.
Yeah,
or else exactly. You can take the score yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I suppose, look, there's probably a few of us in the team that aren't in there to score, but we will take the opportunity when it comes, of course. But yeah, we kind of had specific roles. You watch any team now, they all have that. Deep playing half forwards, condensed middle third. Every single team is doing it, like. So it's not any big secret or anything like that. It's just, yeah, I probably found, I suppose, definitely in the league, like, I probably took a lot of confidence from the first game I got to play in the league against Kilkenny. Like, you're probably going up against, look, they're the second best team in Ireland in terms of the last 2 years. They've been the last two All-Ireland finals. Like, so, I thought I went reasonably okay that day. Was able to affect a lot of play, get on a lot of ball. Probably should have got another 2 points. So I probably took a lot of confidence from that, and then I grew in my role as the year went on. In fairness to our management team, they kept giving me the chance. I got loads of minutes under my belt. Whether it was either, well, to be fair, I actually started every single league match and every championship match, except for Elite, in the first round. So yeah, they gave me as much time as I needed, and they allowed me to settle, and showed a lot of faith in me. And I suppose I wanted to go out and repay them for doing that. So but yeah, look, I suppose myself, Seamus Kennedy, Dan McCormack, we knew what we were there for, and I think we carried it out reasonably okay.
Did you know that since you went in, or was there ever a stage when you went in initially where you tried to be something that you're not, in a sense?
Not really. Like, no, to be honest, I would have backed myself in I suppose I knew what I was good at, and I knew I could bring something to the table in that regard. I would consider myself a small bit different to a lot of the players on our squad. Like, as I said, I'm not the touchy kind of lad who's going to score over your shoulder from 45 yards or further. Like, I nearly struggled to put it over from 45 yards looking at the post. So it's just, yeah, I knew what I was going to be brought in for. I just love being around, I suppose, that middle third and just kind of fire myself into everything. And but yeah, I just wanted to show that. And
so do you think it was the confidence really that led to, as it's been termed, I suppose, and you being nominated for Tipp Player of the Year, like, breakthrough season?
Yeah, well, look, like, I suppose when you're going out to play a game, like, confidence is everything, really. Like, if you don't have confidence in yourself or your teammates or your management team, it's going to show on the field. Like, so I suppose, yeah, I think I did go into a lot of games with a lot of confidence, and I suppose I never really thought about the opposition. Not that I didn't, I did think about them, but not that I was like never thinking.
You didn't worry about
they're never. I didn't feel they were ever going to get the better of me, and like, of course, some lads do get the better of you, but I suppose I went in with a good mentality into those games, and probably under the radar a good bit because, as everyone knows, I'm not the star. You're not the star player on the team, so I suppose it's nice to be that, because you're not getting picked up by their best player or anything, their best man marker and stuff like that. So it allows you to maybe go out and just express yourself and show, I suppose, what we wanted to show the Tipperary public, that we were up for the fight and put our best foot forward in the games we played in.
So, just to touch on putting your best foot forward and to talk about confidence, when you're facing Limerick, because there is a big rivalry, Tipp and Limerick, when you're going into that game, do you have the same level of confidence going into that game as you do for every other game? Is that the nature of an elite inter-county athlete, that you're going in there thinking, look, we have these lads' number? Because every single time we play Limerick, like Tipp play Limerick, you rise to the challenge, but a lot of the time Tipp just struggle to get over the line against them in recent years, at least. So I wanted to ask you, do you approach that game any differently than any other game? Is there more meaning attached to that game, or is it just a different opponent, same thing?
Yeah, different opponent, same thing. That's the way I would have looked at it, and I would imagine that's the way everybody would have looked at it. You have to treat every single person or every single team with the same amount of respect, because if you don't, you'll be turned over. I suppose we probably learned that the hard way. As I say, go back to Waterford, they hadn't a win on the board, and they came to Thurles and they absolutely spoiled our party. So it's just, yeah, like, of course it's massive playing Limerick. They are All-Ireland champions. They've 4 in a row now, and it's not that like you feel any different playing against them, or it is a different game. But I suppose if you got to win over them, it's a massive scalp. Like you see Clare this year, they got a big win over them in the Munster Championship. They're then tipped to be favourites to be All-Ireland champions just because they've beaten Limerick once. But I didn't approach those games any differently, and I know from our training we didn't approach those games any differently. And like I even remember being asked like, oh, did you approach the Offaly game different to the Galway game? Like, of course we didn't. We went out and we trained the same as we always do, and it was just 1 week we got a good performance and the next we didn't. Like, it was nothing got to do with our preparation or anything like that, or it was just what happened. As everyone knows, like, hurling takes on a life of its own, and that's what happened on those particular days. But no, we would never have approached any team differently. To you'd have different setups and stuff like that, of course, but we wouldn't have approached our training or a team in any different way.
So then, in relation to the games being the same, from an S&C perspective, when I'm looking at the data, there's a tiny bit of difference in championship fixtures versus league. Well, sometimes significant, sometimes not so significant. But when you get to championship, usually, and not always because of the hot weather, there's far more cramping in championship than there is in a league campaign.
I suppose.
And what I've put it down to, and from conversations I've had, there's more stress on the system going into a championship game because a lot of club level athletes, you know yourself, championship is everything.
Yeah.
So they approach a championship game mentally or psychologically very different to how they approach a league game.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing at inter-county level, or do you think the cream rises to the top and all every time you go out in the field, it's the same level of psychological preparation?
Yeah. Probably not. Like, it probably isn't. Like, of course, it's different. Like, championship is different to league. There's no hiding there. Like, you go to a league match from 10,000-15,000. You go to a championship match, there's 45,000. Like, that brings a pressure in itself. The atmosphere is like, I remember at Cork that evening, and in fairness to the Cork fans, like, it was insane. Like, driving to Páirc Uí Chaoimh. I remember, like, it was like watching Liverpool going to Champions League final there a few years ago when they had the red flares, and of course, like, it was all Cork people, like, and they had the red flares and they were hopping cans off our bus and everything like that. But do you know, it was,
should Roscrea fans have red flares?
Yeah, the ultras in Roscrea. But I know it does. It brings a different intensity, and it brings the best out of a person too. Like, I think, if you look back through the years, like, the really, really top inter-county GA players, like, relish championship. And I like, if you go back to 2019, Callanan hurler of the year, like, and I don't think he actually had a great league campaign at all. Like, just from talking to other lads, I think he actually had a fairly poor league campaign, was struggling with injury, only kind of coming back. And then just his championship was insane. Like, just a goal every single game. Like, it's not just turning it on or like flicking a switch, but he had a lot of work done, and he was probably doing a lot of work throughout that league campaign because he was coming back from injury and stuff like that.
Biding his time, I suppose,
exactly.
and that comes with experience as well.
And I think every team and player is like that, because, like, you go play a league game, it is week on week, but you're also getting flogged in training during the week too. Like, you're getting the shite ran out of you. And it's a real mucky, wet evening in Dr. Morris, and like, you might play Kilkenny on a Saturday, and you go out on a Tuesday, and the RP of a training session is around 9 or 10, like, and then you go play another game that weekend. Whereas championship, your body's primed for it, like, and you're ready just to go out and explode. You have so much energy in you, nervous energy, and just energy to just go out and just, I suppose, smash into everything in front of you. But like, it's funny, like, you look at the at the start of any inter-county championship match, like it's just everyone baiting off each other, and I suppose lads just mad and raring to go and fly into things. But yeah, then it does settle down. I suppose actually, my uncle would have always said it, like emotion nearly plays the first 10 to 15 minutes of a game for you, and then after that, that's when your composure and your kind of your system and stuff gets into play. But yeah, no, definitely. Look, there is a difference between championship and league for sure.
And then in relation to the added pressure that you've said, or the pressure that comes with so many people watching and it being perceived as more important in the championship, when you first started playing regularly with the senior team, does it differ in terms of, it obviously differs in terms of intensity and speed of play and the technical and tactical elements of the sport, but does it differ significantly from playing for Tipp underage? And what would you put that down to? Do you feel that, because you know when you're 15 years old, under 15 is the be all and end all. I've been on a pitch with you before for Ireland when we've lost an under 14 match, and you'd swear we lost the World Cup final for you, Al.
No, yeah, like, look, I suppose when you're young, like, I suppose with Tipperary, them tournaments are played off in one day, and every single match you played was an Ireland final, and you thought, if you don't win this, I am never ever going to play for Tipp, or whatever. But look, it is, I suppose, yeah, it's way different at adult level. Like, there's no pressure on you as a young lad, only the pressure you put on yourself. Whereas I suppose you have the whole county kind of,
watching you,
and wishing you well, and geez, like, you'd be surprised the amount of people that would be just getting on to you. Like, Tipp hurling is so big, and like, it's just it's crazy how many people be wishing you well, and look, it was great this year. There was a lot of games we did do well, and I'd imagine to be giving you a kick up the arse when you needed it too. But no, it's just, yeah, it's a completely different scenario. Like, you're probably, I remember, like, when I was young, lad, like, you could be eating pizza the night before a match. Like, well, I suppose you could still eat pizza the night before a match, but it wouldn't be for me. Whereas, you're prepping yourself for 2 weeks leading into a game nearly, and making sure that you're I suppose ready to hit the ground running when you're running out onto the field. But yeah, no, completely different scenarios now.
So I spoke to Ronan McNamee about the difference between the club and the inter-county player, and he put it down to small things like the time you get up to training and the extras that you put in outside of your team trainings. Is that something you see, or is there a big difference in terms of how the club level player looks after themselves versus the inter-county player? Because I can't remember who it was. I think it could have been Jackie Terrell was talking about how the club game's gone too serious. It's not fun anymore. But from my perspective as a coach, what I see is the players want to put that in. But is there another level?
Like, I'm just going, I don't know why any other club is like, but I'm just going off Roscrea, and like, genuinely see the lads up training, three nights a week or 2 days a week with a match at the weekend, and like, the effort and the commitment they're putting in is like, it's mad, really. And like, and it's pure because of the love of the game. Like, I suppose, like, there is a difference. There definitely is a difference, and the difference that I'd noticed just from playing with Roscrea and with Tipp in other clubs, as I said, could be different. Is like lads will everyone on the team will go and like pound a gym session out of it. Like, whereas you go up to Roscrea, no offense, lads, but like, some lads just won't go to the gym because they're like, I don't need to go to the gym. I'm good enough to hurl at this level, without gym work. And like, someone I look at like that is like Glenn Loughnane. Like, the lad will not, he'll refuse to go to the gym, but in all of our games this year, he's probably been our best player. So like, it's funny, like, but he gets away with it. But like, if you do go up to an inter-county setup, you won't get away with that. And I suppose like you look at the athletes playing now, it's just even to what it was however many years ago. Like it's completely different. Like, and it's funny. Like my girlfriend, she's from Wexford. Like her father's George O'Connor. Like is 2 All-Stars and an All-Ireland medal. Like, and like, do you know, a lot of lads are back then. Do you know, they're probably stuck in their time, and just from chatting to him, like he's just so like he can't get over the level of athlete now, and he's convinced the game is going to go professional in the next couple of years, because it's, you know, the time and effort that lads are putting in is crazy really, and just to be doing it for, you know, you get your expenses at the end of it, like, but it's just pure love of the game. And but yeah, no, it is like there is a difference with lads doing, as I suppose you said with your chat with Ronan, like it's just the small few extras that to do, and it's just then nailing the basics, like, because in such a, I suppose, high intensity and pressure environment on the field, like you're in a packed out Semple Stadium and you go to rise the ball and you misrise it, it's going to be whipped off you straight away. Whereas in the club game, you might get the second or third chance to get down. You're not going to get that at Inter-County, so you have to nail it every single time, like, and like that's, of course, like that's one of the big things I would have taken from this year, is just like I would have had to spend a lot of time at a ball wall and just working on my first touch and like making sure my strike was consistent, because someday I could drive the ball 100 yards, the next time I drive a 40, like, you know. And it's just having, I suppose, confidence and knowing that you put a bit of work in and a bit of time into maybe nailing those small few things that you had to work on or tweak, and then knowing that you're getting the best out of yourself in the game with those. But yeah, like I don't think there's an absolute massive difference between club and county, but there, of course, there is a difference as well. Like, and so even you're saying with Ron, like him saying lads going doing a bit of extras before training and stuff. Like, if we're training at 7 o'clock in Thurles, like we will be there for 6. Like, if we're training probably 7:30 in Roscrea, you'll have lads coming on to field at 25 to 8. Like, do you know, it's just
The
that's
Snickers
just
on.
yeah, and it's do you know, I suppose inter-county lads choose careers around their sport, whereas club lads do you know, not everyone has that luxury, and it is different. Like, it's completely different, but
the lads are still
yeah,
putting in.
oh, absolutely, and like I know a few of our club lads are running. Well, they're running better. Say we do the 1.2k fitness test. They're running better times than I am, and they're running like they'd be up in the top 2-3 lads in Tipp, like, for the times they're running. So yeah, they're like
They're putting it in.
Yeah, definitely, big time.
So you're saying that the club lads are putting in a huge amount, and you're saying that they're running the same times or better times than a lot of the inter-county players. And last year, it kind of came to fruition for Roscrea, I guess, in that it was the club's best year in recent memory, really. So what was the experience of last year like? Are you still reflecting on that and thinking about it, or are you gung-ho 100% straight into the current club season? And how much time did you take off actually from the inter-county season as well?
Not much time.
You'll be back in Tuesday night.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, after club campaign last year, I got one night off and went straight back in the following Thursday into a pre-season. Then, I suppose, lucky enough, it's my uncle and my father, and I suppose Ger Fitz and Paul Lane. Like, I would have had, and you would have had Ger since we're, you know, under 12s, like, so lads that I would know really, really well, and, you know, lads that would, I suppose, know that I'm not a bluffer, and if I do need a bit of time off, that they'd give it to me. So what happened was we lost with Tipp, to Galway, and we were out in the North Championship. I think it was 2 weeks later. So I trained. I suppose, well, done a few days in the beer. After
Nice.
Done a few days in the beer after, and then went back into training, and I played in the North Championship in the North Championship against Kildangan, and look, we lost that. but I went that Tuesday then, so that was on a Saturday. I went that Tuesday. I went away to Tenerife with my girlfriend Katie for 10 days, I think. And I just completely switched off from sport. Well, I watched back the first half of the game against Glengen out there because I was just bored. But other than that, completely switched off. I drank a few pints. My cousin Oren and his girlfriend were out there too, so I drank a few pints with him 2 of the nights and just chilled out. Went to the water park, went to the beach, jet skiing, quad bike and everything like that. Just anything didn't involve picking up a hurl and striking against the wall or hitting a ladder shoulder or anything like that. So just completely switched off. Enjoyed our time away. Enjoyed the sun, even though some days it was 40 degrees. So I was absolutely had the factor 50 slapped on me. But it was really nice to get away for those few days, and to be honest, felt completely refreshed coming back. Just was mad to play again, and I was actually more so mad to play again with Roscrea, just because I played one game with him. We were absolutely crap, like so bad, and it just wasn't a reflection on us as a team at all. And I suppose, look, we did have a lot of injuries playing in that game, but still, it was just real disappointing to put a performance out like that. And so we actually came home on a Thursday. We actually had a match that Friday against, I suppose, Cottle Manion's club. So it was probably nice to play against the Galway team as the first game back after that. So yeah, we put in a decent performance that night, and then we'd a week to prepare then for championship against Mike Harkey, which we played last Friday evening, and drew. I suppose, look, it's our first game back up senior. Probably reflecting now, it wasn't too bad a result. I suppose we didn't lose. I felt we definitely could have won. They probably felt the same. I suppose any team like that, when it's a draw, you're going to look at how did we win and stuff like that. But yeah,
you're getting to do that a lot this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of draws, all right. But now hopefully
at least you knew that you drew that one.
Yeah,
when you came off the field. Alan was saying earlier off air about, was the Cork game?
Cork game, yeah.
And everybody was telling you that you spoke well.
Yeah, spoke well after in an interview after the game, and I suppose I came across that I was really disappointed, but I didn't get a chance to look at the scoreboard, and I thought we lost. But we actually ended up drawing the game, so I made a bit of a fool of myself.
Well, not really, because everybody thought you were just the ultimate professional. That even with a draw, Alan Tynan isn't satisfied.
The ultimate gobshite, more like.
But then, in relation to even just the break there, to touch on the break for a second, so there's still talk about split season, about the condensed inter-county season, and how people feel it's a bit rushed, or they think it should be spread out a little bit. And you've said that it is tough when you're playing week to week, but the benefit to it, I suppose, from talking to you now and from talking with inter-county athletes that I'm working with, is you're getting the opportunity to go away for a week or two in the summer now, rather than previously when those games were played in September. The second you had that finished, right, you're on the beer for a few days if you win, or if you lose, I suppose. But then they're trying to play off the club championship then as fast as they can, so that they can get it done going into the new year. So it's a more rushed, the club season then, whereas this time, did you feel like the inter-county season was rushed, or was it still like a tough out slog?
No, I didn't feel it was rushed. Like, to be honest, like I would like to maybe see it roll into like middle of August or something like that.
Well, Katie like that.
Like as I said, look, thankfully, she's from a bit of a hurling background, so her father would let her know what it's
he'd
like
love it anyway.
Yeah. But no, like it just gives you, I suppose, more time to, I suppose, if you got 2 weeks after every single game, just. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion, and other lads are completely different. There's definitely no like perfect solution to it or anything like that. And what the way it is at the minute, it actually isn't too bad. But yeah, maybe if it went on for an extra month, like, do you know, if you look back a few years ago when there was no split season, like just in Tipperary, lads could play a championship match. They could have 2 weeks off for their county, but they'd have to go play a championship match on a Saturday, and then like that next Tuesday night they're back in club training and playing a club game that weekend, which is championship. And then it was just like, you know, like you're
There's no weeks off.
yeah, there's no weeks off, and also like you're playing with lads. You know, you're going out and you're going into war with them, and then you're going out to kill them then the following week, which is like, just, it doesn't really make sense. Like, whereas at least it gives you a set amount of time together, and you know, it brings lads probably even closer together than what they might have been before. But then yeah, I suppose like back then it must have been just so tough for the club player, because they couldn't book holidays like ever. They had no set time, because there could be a game just thrown in here, there, or anywhere, and like it's really tough for them, because they're just waiting on, like, if you look at Roscrea, I'm the only one on it, like, and they're just waiting on me to kind of come back, and you're just like, well, I don't know when I'm going to be back, and I don't know when you can go on holiday, like, do you know, that kind of way. Whereas at least now it's, you know, they know early summer, like, head away there, you'll get your, you know, a few weeks away or whatever, or a few nights away, and same as between when you're the inter-county player, you know, you're going to get that maybe week that you can go straight afterwards, in between the kind of club county championship, or inter-county championship. So it's,
and I think what the pundits kind of forget is the GAA, look, it's for everyone and it's for the communities and it's great and everything, but at the end of the day, the GAA is mainly for the players, the people that are playing it. Like, it's good for the fans of the communities to go watch these games and all, but there's no point in going watching games regularly and watching loads of them when the players are being flogged and the players have no lives.
Yeah, exactly. And you go and see a tired player play, like, you're not going to see the
Then
best
they
of
be
him.
given out to you because you're useless.
You're the worst in the world. So I suppose, as I said, there's no probably right or wrong answer at the minute. It's just opinion based, really, and like, it will be hard to find a perfect solution in my head. I suppose after this year, I'm probably like, maybe if they drag it out an extra month, and see how that works. But look, it'll be interesting to see what they do next year. They could keep it the exact same way, and if they do, like, yeah, we'll just have to step up to the mark again and be ready for those games, and then be ready for club championship as well when that comes around.
From a performance perspective, like, as a coach, like, I actually like it the way it is now, because it actually gives you a proper off season. And although it's the density, like, is quite aggressive during the season, at least after the season is over, you can have some time off and then actually have a lead in where you work on some things in off season, pre-season, so you come back in better condition and then you're playing games, rather than it seemed like the way it was, and it still does, like the All-Ireland club finals were played in January, I think, like, so those players, like, even watch Galway like this year and people are giving out that Shane Walsh isn't playing fantastic for Galway or whatever. That's their perception, that's their opinion. But if you looked at the amount of time, like, he stayed going the whole way through from January to January last year, which is tough.
That's
like.
of course it is.
Yeah, so I actually like it the way it is, but at the same time I can understand that why people would like it stretched out, and I can understand why the players feel that if it was stretched out, you'd have more time to recover in between games. I'm just thinking, like, if you do that, they're also going to stretch out the club season, and then it's going to last for another month. But
there is going to be some clubs playing, saying, in different counties. Obviously, they start at different times of the year. Like, there's going to be some clubs playing well into October, just because they didn't start their championship straight after their inter-county team got knocked out. Whereas in Tipp, you do start, like, the minute you're knocked out, or the 2 weeks after it. But, like, if there was maybe a set time for every club championship has to run off by this date or something like that, and it does give the player then I suppose a break from I suppose to get the body right again before he goes into another pre-season.
I think that's definitely an option that should be looked at, and I think the reason it's not looked at is because other counties say, well, we've done it this way all the time, so we're going to do it this way. And then they also say that, well, we have more clubs, so we have more games, so it's going to last on longer or whatever. But my answer to that is, well, make more divisions then.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be a level for everybody to play at, but just because you're not in the top, say, like, for Dublin, for example, like 12 to 14 in league and championship, the couple of teams at the bottom, like, they're fighting for relegation and they're going out and getting bet most weeks, like, generally. They're not getting as much out of that as they would if they were in the division below, but that division didn't have the teams at the bottom of that division that are also getting bet.
True. Yeah.
So, like, if it was a closer level and teams played at their level, I think it'd be more enjoyable. There'd be less games because the club player, like, it's scandalous. Like, I was talking to Paul actually just before we came in here about the amount of games, and actually perfectly well from playing rugby, like, the amount of rugby games you play in a season versus the amount of GAA matches you'll play, like, especially if you're a dual athlete, it's chalk and cheese, like.
Yeah. It's like, well, I suppose different. They're on different time of the year and stuff like that, but like for a club player, say with Roscrea, right? Say we could potentially only play 3 games this year if we avoid relegation, and if you don't go through to the quarterfinal. Now that's not including league. Like, there is league matches, of course.
And how many games do you play in the league then?
I don't know how many they played this year. I think there's 4 teams, 4 to 6 teams. I think in the league. So you have probably five matches, I'd imagine. I think that's what it is. Yeah, and then I suppose if you get to a league semi-final or a league final, you'll have more, and it's the same, I suppose, as the further you progress. But then there's only 4 teams in each group in Tipp, so there's 16 teams in the Danbreen, and there's 4 groups of 4, like, so it's just we could have only 3 championship games. We could have more, depending, like, if you go into relegation playoff or if you go through.
So that's the opposite side of it. There could be not enough games for players, really, and they're training the whole year.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I do think, like, if you go back to years ago, like teams were back, like, before Christmas. Like, and it's just crazy stuff that was going on. Like, players were burnt out by the time championship come around and so fed up of it. Like, whereas now, I don't know if it would have happened if we didn't maybe go as far last year, but there's a bit of science behind when teams go back. It's not just we need to go back and train harder than everyone else because we're going to be better if we
go Wednesday night, lads.
Like, like, it's just a bit of using your head a small bit and maybe coming back a month or 2 after Christmas and allowing lads to have a bit of downtime and probably enjoy their Christmas too, and like, lads come back fresher, and it's not just your body but your mind as well, like. And I suppose if you're never switching off upstairs, you're just going to, like, get burnt out like mentally burnt out, and I think that's nearly even worse than being physically burnt out, because you just don't even have any interest in going to the field when you're feeling like that. So at least there's a small bit more common sense and even science behind
when you go back and what you do.
Yeah,
you touched on there, last year went on a little bit longer than other years and it was very successful, and then obviously having a lot of family involved as well, which was great. Winning county championship and then going on into Munster and whatnot, it was a big journey for the team and for the town as well. What are maybe the standout memories for you of the last year and last season, and what was the experience like of going through that with your family so tied into the group?
To be honest, that was the best experience I've ever had in sport. I actually have goosebumps on my legs. Goosebumps on my legs here, just thinking about the time we won the county final. We got off the bus just at the end of Castle Street and walked up Castle Street with the cup, and the amount of people like in just red and white, and just like, geez, we were basically heroes for
For the night.
for
For a week.
for the few days afterwards. Yeah, it was unreal. And then I suppose to have my uncle as our manager, like, he's been unreal to me. I suppose growing up, he probably was the person I would have looked up to a lot. He would have played hurling and football with Tipperary. I would have travelled to every single one of his games with my nanny and granddad, and seen him play for Tipp, and definitely kind of inspired me a small bit to maybe go on the path I went on. And then I don't know how he got my dad involved, because the man has no hurling background really, only apart from my granddad was a brilliant hurler. But my dad just brought something completely different to our setup, and it was just so refreshing, and like it was mad actually how good he was. And he's still, like, he's still evolving us as a team. The amount of time I just know this because I see the two of them, but the amount of time they put in outside of the training field is unbelievable. And I suppose you go back to the Jacket Hurl thing, saying the club has gone too serious, but like when you have lads like we had over us last year, like, you only want to do the best for them, because they're putting so much time and effort into us as a team, and like they only want to do our town, I suppose bring us back to maybe what they might have missed out on, and from years previous, I suppose when Roscrea was a real stronghold in Tipperary and in Ireland. So yeah, it was unbelievable to play under them. And then I suppose to have my brother and my younger cousin as well, Owen, on the team, like, it's funny, like, I would count Owen as a little brother too. And just thinking back to us being out the back garden, and I would stand in goal and poke the ball out between the two of them and just let them absolutely tear lumps out of each other. And I suppose they would have tore lumps out of me as well. And it's funny then that you go on and you win something so big with them. But I just remember the town for that kind of month and a half period of, like, when we were coming up to the county semi to when we got to the Munster final. It was just like, it was unreal. I'm working in Ashling, my auntie's coffee shop, and like everyone just coming in, and there was no other chat about anything else, only the match this weekend. And it was unreal to be part of.
Seemed to go very fast, didn't it?
Yeah,
It
it did. But I think, like, I think when you enjoy something, like, something like that, it does go real quick, because I think we, in fairness to the players, took it in our stride. We didn't get too ahead of ourselves, but it was just to know that you had the backing of every single person in your club and in your town. It was just something I'll never forget, and definitely the best experience I've ever had on a playing field. And the celebrations afterwards were just class. Like, just every pub was packed. Any pub you went into, it was just some crack. And I suppose, not that we remember,
went into all of them.
Yeah, I went into a right few of them anyway. But yeah, any like, it was unreal to have the backing of everyone.
But isn't it great to have a town so behind a team as well? Because, like, even going to, like, those games, like, Roscrea outnumbered all other fan bases by, and I know it's a big enough town, but like, there's people coming out of the woodwork. Like, I was driving from Dublin down to Cork, for to see, because it's something that, as you said, we never experienced before.
No,
well, we never experienced
as young
in
lads,
the town. Like, we were just told about it all the time.
Yeah, but like, I know we're probably a big enough town, but you see other towns, and like, they don't have massive fan support, because the other sports, and they have so many other sports in the town, whereas you go to like smaller villages and they always seem to have the bigger kind of fan, just supporters going to games, really. Like, but like, in fairness to Roscrea, I don't think I've ever played a game where we've been outnumbered. And you know, some of the stuff shouted in is hilarious, but like it's just class to have a town like that. And I suppose like throughout all of last year, we would have spoke a lot about the community and tried to bring a community together, and I definitely thought we'd done that. And I suppose it's no different this year. Like we're back up senior, but I really do feel we've progressed since, like, I suppose when we were senior 2 years ago, and we can give the Danbreen a real rattle, and maybe surprise a few teams. Like if you get out of your group, you don't know what can happen. You look at Killer One last year, like I think they actually lost their first game, and everyone wrote them off, and they just gelled together and they proved everybody wrong. Anyone that came in front of them, they just wiped them off the field. And last year they were definitely the best team in the county, like, and deserved county champions. But it's mad how, if a couple of lads come together, I suppose how quick things can change, from, I suppose, to them being wrote off to actually being county champions. And I suppose that would have happened a lot with Roscrea throughout the years. So,
but that's the difference that I would see in you now and in the group from chatting to them, is in the past, and similarly to your journey this year, there hasn't been the same level of confidence in yourselves, in your ability to go and shock teams, as you said. Like, whereas last year and the journey you went on and what you achieved seems to have now given you confidence that, look, we're good enough to go and compete and go and beat teams. So hopefully it comes to fruition and you can go and shock a few teams and do your best this year up in senior again, I suppose. And do you feel that confidence in the group, like yourself, when you're in and amongst it? Like, do you feel like the energy of the group change with that experience of results and winning and winning something? Like?
Yeah, and to be honest, it's actually came from say a lot of the younger lads on the team. So, like, I suppose, say Dara, my brother, like his team, him and Dan, and a lot of lads, like, won a minor A county championship, that hasn't been done in Roscrea in yonks, like. And I suppose they kind of came through being like used to winning, and it just brought like a different kind of like I don't know. It's not that everything beforehand was so like dull and
negative.
It was just like, it's not that they're like absolutely driving training sessions through the roof, because they're probably the biggest masters we have on the team as well. Like, but they do bring that sort of kind of I suppose we do have the bit of crack in training too, but when it comes to the serious stuff, like we absolutely do that too. Like, and we actually have a nice balance there at the minute, and it's really enjoyable to go up training and stuff like that. But I do think like they have brought maybe a bit of a winning mentality to the team, and I suppose that's rubbed off on a lot of the older lads. Like, you know, I see like lads like Shane Davis, who has like put his life and soul into Roscrea hurling, and coming from Knock, like, but like, Jesus, to see him last year, and even this year, like, I suppose he played so well. I don't think any forward in the county or would like to mark him, because I absolutely hate marking him in training. But you know, it's just unreal to see. And like, Shane would be quite a serious fella, but I think the lads have rubbed off on like someone like him and Ider and stuff like that, and like there's a real good bond between the younger lads and the older lads on the team. And then there's more lads coming through, like Kenny and Connor Phelan and like all these kind of young lads. And you know, I think it's actually gelling together really well. And if this year doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but I don't think we'll panic. Like, and I do feel over the next couple of years that, you know, we have a right chance of maybe getting Roscrea back to the real top end of hurling in Tipperary. So yeah, there definitely is confidence in our group, and why wouldn't there be? Because, you know, as I said earlier, a game of hurling takes on a life of its own, and, you know, hopefully you do come out the right end of it most of the time. But I know from going up and watching training and being involved in training, lads are putting in 100% every chance they get. So no, it's great at the minute.
So we haven't even talked about rugby at all, but like we mentioned it briefly, but you've been successful in rugby. I don't know if you would say so, but you've been successful in rugby, in Gaelic football, in hurling, and people from outside Roscrea that are listening are probably going to be thinking like, how is this lad doing all this? Now, you've touched on your family and you've touched on how members of your family are also high achievers, but like, what do you put down to your success in terms of your development as a young lad? Why do you think you've done so well athletically, and how far do you think you can go, or what are your ambitions in the coming years?
Yeah. Look, from I suppose from when you're younger, I do put a lot of it down to my family. I suppose like my dad would have played a lot of rugby. My granddad, both granddads would have played hurling at really high level. Liam and my other uncles, like they all would have played GA at high levels. And I suppose it's like my mother would have, and like even you say, would have brought us to Port for soccer training like 3 nights a week. We would shared lifts and for the Midland squad and stuff like that. Like she would have drove me the length and breadth of the country to be at a training session. And as I said, like I'm going to Kerry this weekend, but I would have spent my summers in Kerry, like, because I suppose that's where my granny's from, and they would have brought me back from Kerry to go to a Roscrea hurling training session, like. And I don't think there's, I can't ever like thank them enough for, I suppose, doing that for me. But yeah, a lot of my youth, I suppose, would have came from family. You would have been the same, like when Babby was playing with my father and stuff like that. Like we would have spent all our Sundays out in the rugby field. I suppose out before the matches, throwing and mucking around, and then when they were drinking,
you would have been tackling me into the fucking muck, so you would have.
And then when they were drinking pints afterwards, I think we broke every light out in the hall in the rugby club from that age. But no, like just I suppose from being brought everywhere to train, and then from going watching loads and loads of different teams, I suppose I just had a massive, I suppose, love for sport firstly, and then I do think actually my primary school, we were very lucky to have a really good team. I suppose like we didn't actually win on, but we were in county final every single year, and
teachers that put an emphasis on it as well.
My 2 teachers like would have been Paddy Kelly from Toom and John Manley from Nina, and they would have been involved in the primary games. So like they obviously had a real passion for developing like real young players. So we would have played like street league competitions every lunchtime at the back of the pitch in the back of Lidl there, and it's pure slanted. But health is very striking anyway. But no, yeah, just I suppose from a young age I took massive interest, and I would have thrown my hand at anything, as a lot of us would here in the town. And then I suppose as I got older, then going out to the monastery, the Surgeon College, like that was massive, because I was able to, I suppose, put as much effort as I possibly could into every single sport that I wanted to really have a go at. I was just really lucky out there. Like I got to play with some unreal players. Like some have gone on to represent Ireland already, and like have loads of caps for Munster and stuff like that. And like we won the first ever senior cup for the school. And real good trainers out there. Really good team. But I think like the time management, like you know yourself from working out there, around, I suppose, training and stuff out there, was really good. Like I suppose there was always a balance between the GA and the rugby out there. I suppose pupils themselves would have more preferred the rugby because it probably is a bigger school for rugby. But yeah, just I suppose having training, I suppose a school that facilitated such, I suppose, a high level of sport was massive. And then coming through, then kind of juggling the hurling, the football and rugby, I was just really lucky, to be honest, that management used their brains and chatted among themselves, so I wouldn't be burnt out, basically. To be honest, when I was doing all three of them, that was probably the least I've ever trained.
Just played
because they were just kept me fresh. I remember I was on the Leinster schools team, or maybe it was Leinster 19s. It was one or the other, and I was on Tipp minor hurlers and footballers, and we were in the All Ireland final in both, and like I couldn't believe it, because like I suppose in rugby they'd be like, right, pick one or the other. Now you're at that age, like, and it's fair enough because you're kind of getting close to professional. As close as possible as it could be to professional, like, and they were like, don't come this day, go to GA on that day and leave the gym off or whatever, and like, they were just so accommodating, and they never forced me to, I suppose, make a decision.
Doesn't happen to everyone,
no,
does it?
No, and that's what I'm saying, I was just really lucky. And then I had Charlie McGeever from Clonmel over us in the football, and sure, like, when I went in with Tipp football at first, I was 15, like, and like, sure, I was like a little child, and Charlie basically treated me like a little child, and he was like my father, basically. But like, he was just a lad that I had such a good relationship with, and he knew that all I needed was to be kicking a few balls, and kept fresh, never ran me. Like, no, when I first went in, I did get ran when I was 15. Like, I just done the train like everybody else, but I suppose I probably did get a small bit of a special treatment, just because I was doing so much. And real thankful to all those lads that they were able to come together, and I suppose put me before themselves, and I suppose I was able to get the best out of myself then, and thankfully it has led on to I suppose a successful enough career to date, in, I suppose, two different sports, and that, I think, that is down a lot to I suppose, definitely my family, but them other lads that were, I suppose, put me ahead of themselves, and I'm grateful enough for that now as well.
We shout out Pony as well. Wish him a speedy recovery.
Yeah.
He's all right. Fantastic. We'll move on to the quickfire questions to finish. So the first one is proudest achievement to date.
Proudest achievement to date, I think I touched on it already, was walking up Castle Street with the county final cup there last year. So yeah, just unreal.
Favourite athlete of all time?
Favourite athlete of all time? I'm telling you, David Clifford is nearly pushing it at the minute. He's just unbelievable, and I know it's keeping it local enough in Ireland, but yeah, him or, well, there's probably a few, I suppose. I'm sitting on the fence here a small bit. I'm going to go with Dan Carter.
Yeah, nice. Clifford's getting a hard going the last week or so, for the final, but
what a load of shit.
Yeah, it is. Like,
I was just seeing a tweet, like, and it's just so
everything's
stupid.
hyped up. I was having a conversation yesterday with one of our other selectors, and like, after a game, you'd swear Dublin won by 10 points, and then if Kerry would have won by a point, it would have been the same thing. It would have been Kerry went absolutely hammering them, like, and that game was in the balance. Could have went either way, like, and if he hadn't have taken on that shot that they're all giving out about the left foot that went wide, they would be giving out that he didn't take it on.
There's no winning, because he's like, if I do think Dublin are better than Kerry, right? I did, as a squad, they're better than Kerry. If Clifford wasn't on the Kerry team, I do think Dublin would win, right? But I actually did think Kerry were going to win, because Clifford is just, in my opinion, he's the best, probably GA player of all time. Don't even mind Gaelic football. Nobody can do what he does. He had an off day off the boot. He still scored. He scored 3 points.
And he set up a goal.
Set up 1-2 and won 2 frees.
Yeah.
Like, that's still a fair contribution. Like,
if you do that in a hurling
if
match,
I'm doing that, I'm coming off absolutely delighted with myself. Like, so it's just, look, it's because he's been so consistent in every single game he's played, and this is when Kerry weren't even firing, say, 3 or 4 years ago. Like, Clifford was so young. Well, he must have been 20 years of age, and he absolutely, like, he's making a show of, like, really good experienced defenders. Like, he's just, He's just class, but everyone's going to have an off day. It was just unfortunate he had an off day from the boot in an All-Ireland final when there was, I suppose, such high stakes and then such pressure on him to deliver. But I do think down in Kerry, they're not putting too much pressure on him. It's the actual everyone else around the country that seem to be talking a lot of shite about it.
100%. And like usually they're saying like, Jesus, David Clifford's great. He grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck and went and took it. He tried to do the same thing. It just didn't fall on the right side for him. And at the same time, two things can be true. David Clifford can have an off day and still not be terrible.
Yeah.
Like, and just because, and it kind of discounts Dublin going and winning the game as well, saying that they only won because Clifford had an off day. Like, Dublin went and took that game, and Mick Fitzsimons did do a decent job on Clifford, but like doing a decent job on Clifford is limited him to 3 points and 1-2 assists, you know. So two things can be true, but I just find that a lot of the chat in the media can be fairly cynical at times. Like, and we should be talking about a final that was great. Final, like, to watch.
Yeah, it's just it's hilarious. Like, they just, I suppose
that's what gets clicks.
They nearly build you up to knock you down.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
just it. Like, it's funny. Like, I'd say there's no better person to block out all that noise than him, because if he listened to it, I'd say he would have been retired by now. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no.
What's the biggest thing you've learned in the last 12 months?
In the last 12 months, I suppose definitely be to back yourself, to just go for it. I think if I was to look back on my rugby career, I'd have a regret in that I didn't fully do that. I would have been quite, I suppose, a shy young lad involved with Munster, training with real big names and, you know, like some of the best in the world, and probably been too shy to even put my best foot forward. Whereas came in with Tipp this year, and I probably came with age and a bit of maturity, and I was just like, just go for it. What have you got to lose? If you get dropped, you get dropped. If you start, you start. If you're only coming on for a couple of minutes, make sure
they're a good couple of minutes.
Do you know, that kind of way? And it was just, to just go for it and don't hold back and have full belief in your own ability, because only you know what you can really do. And I suppose I feel like there's a lot more I can improve on and get better with. And I'm not just happy at where I'm at now just because I've played a few games. I'm fully aware that we had a good few injuries this year, and a lot of them playing around the position I play in. So I can't just rest on maybe a couple of performances I put in last season, and I just have to build on them and make sure I'm a lot more consistent than what I was last year, because, you know, while there was a few games I played well, and there was a few games I hardly touched the ball in either. So you know, it's just.
But do you think backing yourself is what you need to do in order to?
100%. I remember playing against Limerick and on Kyle Hayes, and I'd say between the two of us we had about 4 possessions. Like, we were just literally marking each other, and I got taken off quite early. But I just remember going into training after that, and I was sour. Not that I got taken off, because I knew I knew I had to come off, really.
But that's funny, because on the commentary they were saying Alan Tynan's done very well, Kyle Hayes hasn't touched the ball.
Yeah, but at the same time, Kyle Hayes is the wing back and I'm the wing forward. Yeah. So, you know, I have to be getting on a bit of all too. But no, it's just, I was a bit sour, and I was like, to be honest, I felt my place could have been, you know, it was under threat really, and went in and put in a good week's training that week, and thankfully kept my place in the team. But I do think that was down to, well, probably a bit of stubbornness and a lot of self-belief, and knowing what I'd put in earlier on in the year will, you know, has kind of, I suppose, been money in the bank now, and you know, just so that would be it really. Any young lad listening out there is just to go for it and fully back yourself, and if you're not good enough, bounce back, because I've been told by more than one person I'm not good enough, and, you know, it's nice to prove them wrong every now and again. So definitely back yourself.
What would you tell your 18-year-old self then? Something similar?
Something very similar, yeah. definitely. I suppose I was 18 going into Munster. Um, I don't know what I'm like now, but I would have felt definitely that year brought me on something fierce, playing a lot with young Munster and then getting onto the Irish 20s team. And um, I suppose I really felt after that year I actually could be a professional player. Done 3 years in the academy. You know, I had a lot of injuries and stuff like that, but I just felt it wasn't until it was nearly too late that I was nearly bold enough to go and ask a few questions that I should have asked a lot earlier. But yeah, definitely just going back to believing in yourself and nearly, I suppose everyone's in the same boat when it comes to elite performance. Like, everybody there is good, really good, and you're all striving for the one thing, and it's to be like nearly a lot of the best players in those, like, they're selfish, like, because you have to be, like, you have to it's a job too at the end of the day, and you have to, I suppose, provide for whoever, provide for yourself, or down the line you'll have a family or whatever, and you want to have, I suppose, a healthy I suppose relationship with all that kind of stuff. But no, it's just, yeah, I definitely didn't back myself going in. Definitely not my first 2 years in the academy anyway. And then it was more, I probably didn't even back myself in my third year either. It was just more, I actually had to go and do it. I had to go and ask the question, why wasn't I playing or getting a preseason game and stuff like that. And because I asked why wasn't I actually ended up one day getting put onto the match day panel. I'd say it was pure token gesture, to be honest. But I actually got 15 minutes at the end against Connacht, and I done well. I done really well, and I ended up travelling reserve with Munster for the next 8 games in a row, which is heartbreaking, really, because you're one person off getting onto the squad. And I suppose, like, you look at someone like Gavin Coombs would have been the same age as me, and I think he nearly would have been the same as me. Didn't back himself maybe the first year in there, like, he was just, and like, I played club with him with young Munsters, and he was ripping it up, like, probably didn't back himself first year and a half, and he just, I don't know if it was an injury or not, but he just got a chance and he's never looked back since. And now he's probably going to be in a World Cup squad, like. So I do think there's an element of luck with it too, that everyone, I suppose, is absolutely training as hard as it possibly can, but in certain positions I suppose I think he got his first go at second row maybe, and obviously there's two people in the second row, and there was a good few injuries in Munster around that time, and like, he just got his chance and he absolutely grabbed it. But I do think there's a lot of lads in academies that are just waiting for an opportunity, and I do think when they get it, I do think like, a lot of them would take the chance, because they're literally just crying out for an opportunity to put their best foot forward. But yeah, that would what I'd be telling my 18-year-old self anyway. Just back yourself and have a small bit of boldness about you as well.
It's not bold or buchel. Not a quick fire question, but just off the back of that, there is a lot of luck involved. Like, I spoke to Conor O'Brien about his first start was travelling reserve, and then all of a sudden he's playing 12 because they get a couple of injuries to warm up. And somebody else recently as well said the same thing. It was David Hawkshaw, actually. He was thrust in as well out of nowhere. A lot of luck involved, but now when you pull on the blue and gold, like, do you ever think, like, or reflect and say, I wish I'd done this differently, or are you happy the way things worked out that you're playing with Tipp now?
I don't have any regrets in the career I chose to go with. Like, I actually remember sitting down with Liam and Mikey, just having a one-to-one meeting with them at the start of the year, and they were just like, sure, like, I don't like, I they would have been my under 21 managers as well. Like, when said we were moving up to under 21, they were moving with us, and obviously I had to step away and go and play I went and chose to play rugby, and sure they were like, how could we blame you or hold anything against you for ever doing that? Because if it was our son, we'd be telling him to do the same thing. And I suppose I had the chance to be a professional athlete, to go and get paid to go training every single day. And you know, I suppose, I don't know if there's too many people that are going to turn down that opportunity. And I suppose it's something I really wanted to give a go at. In like looking back, I suppose hurling always was my number one. And I suppose when I was in Munster and when times were good, they were good. Like, but when times were tough, you would always be thinking, oh, what if I went and played hurling and stuff like that? What would I be doing now? But no, I don't regret going and giving it a lash, because I could be sitting here now and have a few caps to my name for Munster or for another like professional team or anything like that. But I suppose the one thing I'm kind of happy enough with is knowing that I probably could have stayed trying with the rugby and went to a couple of teams and maybe been a bit of a journeyman. But I'm really happy with my decision to go back to the GAA and go back to hurling at Roscrea and eventually getting onto the Tipp team, because I suppose when times were tough last year, like I got dropped off Tipp from when I suppose I had an injury, but also it was a management decision too. Like, it wasn't just because of the injury. And I suppose that, like, you do have a lot of doubts in your mind, but one doubt was in my mind like that I didn't have was I wish I was playing rugby. Whereas there was sometimes when I was playing rugby, I was like, I wish I was playing hurling. So I definitely know I've made the right decision to.
So when CJ Stander runs into you, you're saying, I wish I was saying
when you're holding a tackle bag for basically a full year and you're getting hit by them, and you're like, I wouldn't mind playing hurling now actually. But no, I'm definitely happy enough with the path I went, and delighted that I gave the professional opportunity a right crack, and but happy out now that I'm back hurling with Roscrea and Tipp.
Class. Well, hopefully we see Roscrea and Tipp going on and winning a few more trophies. Thanks a million for coming on, Al. Great conversation.
Yeah, delighted to be.